Hail, it's Starzy, and today we are going to be doing my September wrap-up. I know, we're sitting down to film a video again. Crazy, right? Yeah, despite being in lockdown, things have kind of been pretty busy. Even though I feel like all I really did in September was work and consume media or like hang out online with people because we were still in lockdown. But as of this week, like we're officially out of lockdown now, so that's very exciting. But September, that was not the case. But yeah, I did read some things and watch some things in September, so we're gonna talk about those today. And I am in my hoodie because Mum was finally able to give it to me yesterday. Thank you, Mother. It's very cozy. And since the weather's actually heating up here now, hoodie days are somewhat limited, so we're wearing the cozy avocado, a snug avocado. Yeah, I guess we'll just get right on into the things I read, hey? So the first thing that I finished reading in September was Nosferatu by Joe Hill. This was the pick for Horror Hose, which is a book club started by Maddie over at The Book Pusher is her YouTube channel, because it's a horror book club. So this is the pick for August and September. And in this we are kind of primarily following a character Vic, but then also the underlying kind of horror mostly comes down to Charlie Manx, who has this car with Nosferatu as a number plate, and he takes children and they're never seen again. And Vic is someone who kind of got away from him when she was a kid, and so that's kind of the setup for what's going on in here. And there were some interesting like supernatural type elements and things like that, which is stuff that I really enjoy. So I think this did have some effective things going on, and I did find it overall interesting. But I also had problems with it. And a lot of that came down to the treatment of women in this book, which, I mean, women in horror doesn't really love women, especially horror when it's written by men. And I don't just mean in the way that the female characters were treated like within the story, which is an issue in itself that I feel like assault of women is something that's used so much in horror as like a primary element of the horror. And at this point, like it's not something I appreciate in horror, especially since it's so overdone, and because it's something that so many women have to deal with in reality in various ways. It's not something I love seeing in my media, and it's a bit like we don't really need that in a horror story to feel the horror because it's too close to home sometimes. So I have a lot of feelings when it comes to assault of women in media, especially horror media. I've spoken about this before because I've picked up way too many books with it this year accidentally. So that's a whole thing in and of itself. But even beyond that, like I think we can, as intelligent human beings, establish that what characters say within a book doesn't necessarily reflect the messages of the book or the ideas of an author. However, when your like villain characters are given the opportunity to have multiple long monologues about women, you do have to start to wonder a bit where it came from. Like there's showing your villains to be villains, but then there's, yeah, there were multiple monologues about how horrible women are and how promiscuous women are and various other things like that, and where again it was usually from bad characters, there was still a lot of it. So most of my problems with this book came down to the way women were treated or written about, which interestingly, this is by the son of Stephen King, and one of the primary issues with the little bit of King I've read is how he often writes women, especially in It. So, not great. I'm still after more horror recommendations that treat women well, or where the women are well written. Would love that, because there was also things about the way the ending of this wrapped up I wasn't real happy with, and again, some of that came down to the way women were placed in the story. Like, there was a character who was just there to be a love interest of a man, it kind of felt like by the end, because of course the geeky woman has to end up with the geeky man, and that just gave me a lot of bad feelings in general, because if you've spent a lot of time in geek spaces, the way some men feel entitled to things or expect women to reciprocate just because they're interested in similar things is a big issue. But I didn't actually want to spend that much time talking about this, so I'm gonna take a breath. But yeah, this overall had an interesting story, I felt, and there were interesting things going on, but I did not like the way women were written about or utilized in a lot of cases. And the other thing that irked me a bit was just the fact of, like, almost every chapter it felt like that one particular character appeared, the author had to continue telling us about how fat he was. So it was like, seemed a bit unnecessary. Like, mention it once and move on. A few things that irked me. I didn't end up rating this because too many conflicted feelings overall, but that was this. I read it. Yeah. Alright, I then moved on to a children's horror. I listened to Welcome to Deadhouse by R.L. Stine, which is the first book in the Goosebumps series. This follows a family who moves, and it's got your creepy house vibes, your creepy town vibes, and they don't really know what's going on, and then shit happens. Very short book. You can't say much about it without telling like the entire story. But I was actually pleasantly surprised by this. I felt like it did hold up, and it was interesting, and I did enjoy this overall. My only complaint I really had about it was just the fact of why are dogs always dying in horror? Why is that always a thing? Not an actual complaint, more just like, oh, that's okay. Yep. I don't have much to say about it other than I don't regret listening to it. I know that Ali over at Hard by Quarter and Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin both read all freaking 62 Goosebump books in the month, like the masochistic individuals they are, and I applaud them for it. Go watch their videos if you haven't, but I listened to one. I listened to one Goosebumps book, I got my little bit of nostalgia, and from watching their videos, it's one of the few books that probably actually do hold up, so no regrets. Then we get into all the books that I've spoken about before, because I did vlog the last couple of weeks of the month. So I've spoken about all these more extensively in vlogs before, if you want to check that out. The first vlog was a vlog of my little sibling chooses my TBR. So the first book in that was Part of Your World by Liz Braswell, which is part of the... I can't actually remember what the series is called. Twisted Villains, Twisted Tales? Twisted Tales, maybe? But they're essentially takes on Disney stories where there's some twist in the story. This one is What If Ariel Had Never Defeated Ursula? And again, lots more thoughts in that vlog. Overall, didn't love this though. Had some interesting ideas, but I don't think that it was executed effectively enough for me, and overall kind of bored me a bit in places, and also just, yeah, was a bit iffy about some of the way things went down. So I'm interested in picking up more of these books, potentially, but this one in particular I felt very meh about. And again, thoughts in that vlog. The other one that my sibling picked for me that I had never heard of before was The Girl Who Moved Shiz With Her Mind by Jackson Ford. This is like an urban fantasy, sci-fi. The way it's done is kind of more sci-fi than fantasy almost. But we are dealing with someone who has the power to move stuff, and she's kind of working secretly for the government because in exchange for like not being cut up and just having scientists trying to work out how she ticks, essentially. And at the start of this, there is a murder that is done in a way where she's suspected because only someone with her powers would seemingly be able to have done this murder. And she's trying to clear her name and find out what's going on. And I was pleasantly surprised by this book. I did really enjoy it. Didn't love the way romance was starting to be handled by the end, and I'm hoping that that doesn't continue going downhill because this is a series, and that dragged it down for me overall, where this was like a strong 4-star book in terms of my enjoyment, but that one scene at the end irked me enough to pull down that rating a little bit. But overall, it was a fun ride. And again, more thoughts in that vlog. I don't want to repeat myself too much, but it was fun. It was fun and had some found family stuff, although I didn't love all the characters, but still interactions were fun. And then the last book that was in that vlog, although it wasn't one picked by my sibling, Smoke Gets in Your Eyes and Other Lessons from the Crematory by Caitlin Doherty, who is a mortician who has a YouTube channel, Ask a Mortician. This is non-fiction, her telling a bunch of things that have happened in her life and different things related to the jobs she's had. Gets quite gross in terms of graphic details of bodies sometimes, but very interesting, and definitely interesting also in like different perspectives on death and how people deal with it. So I really enjoyed listening to this, especially also because the author, I listened to an audiobook that was read by the author, and just the way the book's written and just her kind of tone to how she tells things is really interesting and has like a little bit of humor to it and stuff. So I actually really enjoyed this and found it really interesting. And I know she has another book that is kind of to do with, I think, perspectives of death around the world and different death practices maybe or something. So I'm definitely really interested in that. Yeah, this was really interesting. And again, one I've spoken about before. And then the last thing that I read in September, which again was in the last vlog that I uploaded, The Gilded Cage by Lynette Noddy. We had a good little bit of a rant in that vlog. This is the second book, the sequel to The Prison Healer. And in The Prison Healer, we are following Kiva, who is in this prison where lots of people die, and the treatment of the prisoners is pretty horrific, and things that go on in the prison are not great. But it turns out someone ends up coming to the prison, and Kiva ends up taking their place in a series of elemental trials in the hopes of both saving this individual and escaping herself. So it's a YA fantasy that was a lot darker than I expected, but I really enjoyed that first one. And I can't really tell you anything about the second one because it's all major spoilers for the first one, other than the fact that The Gilded Cage was kind of a slower read in some ways, in that it was very much about kind of emotions and inner turmoil and relationship building, and I really enjoyed that whole process. But then it came to the ending. Dude, it's been like a month and I'm still not over the ending. I didn't like what happened at the end, but how I feel about the ending overall, I think is going to depend very much on what happens in the next book, which unfortunately does not come out until next year, like June, I think. So it's definitely a book I'm going to pick up as soon as it comes out next year, but right now I'm still angry about that ending. And yeah, I'm just frustrated that I'm having to just sit with it, and I still don't have a good way to articulate that further. But as I've said before, if you have read The Gilded Cage and you want to talk about it, please, because I don't think any of my friends have read it, and it's frustrating and lots of spoilery thoughts, but still reeling from that. That was the last thing I read in September. Good, cool. I feel like I haven't been this like emotionally invested in a series in a long time, so I guess it has that going for it. Alright, so they're the books I read, but I did also watch a few movies, so let's see what those were. So I watched 7 movies in September, so let's just quickly go over them. First of all, The Suicide Squad, which was a brand new movie. I had to freaking pay the rental price because we were in lockdown, and obviously you can't go to cinemas when you're in lockdown, and we were in lockdown for months, and I freaking wanted to watch this movie because Harley Quinn is like my favorite character of all time. She has been since I was maybe like 15, so that's a while. And Birds of Prey has become pretty much my favorite movie, so I really wanted to see this. I had high hopes for it because I've been hearing lots of good things, and because like the first Suicide Squad movie, it can only go uphill from there, surely. But yeah, this was actually a decent movie, so I was very happy about that. You know, cool action, fun characters. I did really enjoy that movie. We don't need to go ranting about the first movie, and especially like the way Harley was used in that movie, but it was decent and cool stuff. I don't know. But yeah, decent movie. Then watched Batman Forever because we started watching through, we started watching that run of Batman movies the month before. So we were up to Batman Forever. The last 2 Batman movies in this franchise, I don't necessarily consider good movies, but they're still very much watchable movies that I will continue to rewatch. Batman Forever is possibly my least favorite of all 4 of the movies. As much as objectively Batman and Robin, which is actually the next movie I watched, the movie we watched after Batman Forever was Batman and Robin, and I feel like objectively Batman and Robin in some ways is worse, but I have always had a soft spot for Batman and Robin. Yeah, these movies are campy and over the top and oversaturated, which it's really interesting to compare them to, you know, Tim Burton's Batman and Batman Returns, considering they're the same run of movies, but they're so starkly different in so many ways, although still similar in terms of being kind of overly theatrical. But yeah, I don't think they're like objectively good movies, but they're fun movies, and I love Batman and Gotham, so there are some weird things in these movies just in terms of the way characterization happens and stuff as well, but don't need to get into it. Some fun movies we watched. Then we watched The Final Girls, which is a horror, is it a horror comedy? This is about a group of teenagers who end up inside a horror movie that the mother of one of them starred in back when the movie was released. So it's, yeah, just kind of those fun teen slashery vibes. I gave this, what did I rate this? I rated this 3 out of 5 stars apparently. I didn't love it, but it was a fun enough movie. So it was a thing we watched if you're into that type of movie. Then we watched The Little Mermaid. Because I was reading this book, I really wanted to go back and watch The Little Mermaid because I feel like it had been so many years since I'd seen it, and I wanted to have that fresh in my mind as I continued this. So we watched The Little Mermaid and, you know, all that good Disney nostalgia. Then we watched The Little Mermaid 2, Return to the Sea, which I don't know that I loved. Especially, I feel like the thing that really lets down Disney sequels sometimes is the music, because something that's so iconic about Disney animated movies are often the songs. Well, we watched it. And then the last movie we watched in September was Escape Room, which I didn't even rate this. I don't know why I didn't rate it. As far as I remember, again, it's been like a month, almost a month now. As far as I remember, I thought this was a well done movie. It's a horror movie where a bunch of people are invited to an escape room and things turn deadly very quickly. Yeah, so for that type of movie, it was a decent one, I feel. I know that most people who click on my videos do watch more for the book content, so I don't go into detail on any of the movies, but there's what I watched and what I enjoyed and what I didn't, more or less. This month, I am watching my 31 spooky movies. I think I've watched 26 movies So I have to watch 5 more this week, and then I've done it, so we're well on our way. But otherwise, yeah, that's the they're the things I read and watched overall for September. And, you know, obviously still playing lots of games. I've said it before, but like, if you do ever want to say hi, Twitch is the place to find me, because I stream at minimum once a week, sometimes 2 to 3 times, depending on what's going on, and I'm always hanging out in other people's streams. That's the place you'll see me, even when I'm not making sit-down videos consistently. But yeah, October's been really fun, just in terms of all the spooky vibes of all the things I've been watching, all of the games I've been playing, because I've been playing a variety of different horror games, and it's been a good time. A good time. Have I been reading anything? Yes, I have read a couple of books this month, yes. But otherwise, yeah, I guess that's gonna be it from me today. But let me know what you've been reading or watching and loving. Let me know what you think of any of the things that I mentioned today, or just say hi or leave an emoji. I haven't been actively around Booktube a whole heap recently, because again, Twitch happens, but I want to stay connected, so let's chat. Let me know what you've been reading, what you've been up to. Otherwise, I'll see you around. Stay safe, stay educated, and Starzy out.